Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big topics by going right to the source. Today, we're going to dig into the hidden blueprints that power the world's greatest companies. We're talking about the history of the business model. So, let's just run with that idea for a second. Picture it. Henry Ford, King Gillette, and Steve Jobs all sitting around a table. These guys didn't just invent new things, they invented entirely new ways of making money. And their ideas still shape our world, probably in ways you don't even realize.
But, before we get into their genius moves, let's make sure we're all on the same page. What is a business model? It's a term that gets thrown around constantly, but what does it actually mean?
When you boil it all down, a business model is really just the story of how a company works. You could figure out any business model by just asking three simple questions. Who are you creating value for? How exactly are you doing it? And of course, how do you get paid for it? That's it. That's the core logic.
What's pretty wild is how the term itself evolved. For the longest time, innovators were doing all this stuff without ever calling it a business model. Then, bam, the dot-com boom hits, and suddenly it's the biggest buzzword on the planet. And now it's settled into what it is today, a really serious tool for strategy.
All right, let's dive into the first big piece of this. We're going to look at how some of the greatest innovators didn't actually invent a new product, but a revolutionary new way of getting paid. We've all been there, right? But that whole setup isn't some newfangled trick. It's an incredibly powerful business model that's actually been around for over 100 years. And here it is, the razor and blades model. King C. Gillette had this light bulb moment where he realized, why am I selling one expensive razor one time? He figured out the real money wasn't in the handle, it was in selling the cheap disposable blades over and over and over again.
And once you see this model, you start seeing it everywhere. That's why your game console is affordable. They make their money on the games. That cheap coffee machine, it's just a vehicle to sell you those pricey pods. It's a genius way to lock in a customer. Okay, so that's about changing how you get paid. Next up, let's talk about innovators who built absolute empires by completely changing how they made and delivered their products.
This famous line, it tells you everything you need to know about Henry Ford. He wasn't just obsessed with building a car, he was obsessed with building the most efficient system on Earth to produce that car. And for that, he needed absolute total control.
Just look at this. The scale is just mind-blowing. Ford literally owned everything, from the iron mines and rubber plantations all the way to the ships that brought it to his factory. Raw materials could go in one end of his plant, and a finished car would roll out the other end just 28 hours later. It was efficiency perfected.
But there's a catch with pure efficiency. Alfred Sloan over at General Motors saw the opening. While Ford was selling one car in one color, GM came along and offered choice. A car for every purse and purpose, they said. They introduced different brands, annual model updates, and even financing. GM proved that sometimes appealing to what people want is an even better business model than just being the most efficient.
So for the better part of a century, these were the dominant playbooks. And then the internet showed up. And it was a force so huge, it didn't just create new business models, it took the old ones and flipped them completely on their head.
And this is maybe the most brilliant example of that flip. Apple basically looked at Gillette's model and said, let's do the exact opposite. Instead of cheap hardware and expensive refills, they sell you premium, high-profit hardware, the iPhone, and then make it indispensable with cheap or free software like apps and music. It's the reverse razor and blades model. And wow, did it work.
The internet also gave us this totally new kind of business, the platform. Think about it. Companies like PayPal or Airbnb don't really sell their own products. They build a digital space, a platform that connects different groups, like buyers and sellers or hosts and guests. All their value comes from making that connection happen smoothly and safely.
Okay, so we've gone on a journey from razors to cars to iPhones. What's the big picture lesson here? What really is the secret sauce to business model innovation?
Well, the economist Joseph Schumpeter pretty much nailed it almost 100 years ago. He argued that huge breakthroughs aren't always about creating something brand new out of thin air. A lot of the time, it's about cleverly remixing ideas that are already out there.
And when you look back, you can see this pattern play out over and over. Someone comes along and breaks a rule everyone thought was sacred. Gillette, Ford, Apple. They each took existing ideas, combined them in a new way, and created a new blueprint that totally remade their industries, leaving everyone else scrambling to catch up. And that kind of brings us to our final thought. The next billion-dollar idea might not be some futuristic new invention. It might just be a brilliant remix of a business we already see every single day, just waiting for someone to come along and see it in a completely new light.